Hi, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
And this is All Walks of Film. Today we're talking about Jellyfish Eyes. Directed by Takashi Murakami.
All I can do is pout about this. Ugh. I have to start at the very end of the movie. The very last thing. That's just like, why? You tell him.
Alright, so the movie had a Vocaloid track at
No!
the end. And Casey isn't a huge fan of Vocaloid.
Okay. You can do Vocaloid. I get it. I understand why. And I even understand why they used Miku Hatsune, but for the love of God, why Miku Hatsune? I get that she's the most popular one out of all of them, but a few of the Vocaloids are actually decent sounding, like Luca. Luca actually sounds good. Miku Hatsune, every reiteration of her, a generation of her, sounds horrible. And like the most horrible out of all of the Vocaloids, although Kaito's not great either, but there are some versions of Kaito that are okay. Miku Hatsune just, And it was just like, it's literally just like clawing on my eardrums every time she tries to hold a note.
Alright, let's talk about the movie though. We'll get back to that.
Well, okay, I get why they use Vocaloid. I understand it. Especially considering that this was a low-budget movie. Because Vocaloid is recognizable. It's an idol, it's an image, it's a name. People know it. People all over the world know it. Miku Hatsune has been used to, like, you do product placements in Japan and America. Like, that's how popular she is. But she's not a real person. And Vocaloid, once you buy the program, you can do anything you want with it. You don't have to pay royalties. You don't have to pay money to create your own song, use the Miku Hatsune program, and put it in your movie. And fans will say, oh, Miku Hatsune! But it doesn't cost you anything. I get it. But...
And all the Miku Hatsune fans are just raging right now.
Find rage, I don't care. Fuck Miku Hatsune. Like I said, like, Vocaloid isn't all bad. I like Vocaloid as a concept. I like it as a program. I like certain Vocaloid characters for their voices, but Miku Hatsune is not even that fucking cute, you guys. Like, I had to talk about this first because, like, my horrible anger over this is just, like, overshadowing the whole rest of the movie. Which is so unfair, but I'm just like...
Yeah, it's totally unfair to the movie.
Okay, at least when Takashi Murakami collaborated with Kanye West, it was when he was, like, super badass freaking awesome. Okay? Like, it was back before, like, he was sending women pictures of his dick. You know, in the song Runaway, he's like, I sent her a picture of my dick.
No.
He put that in the song. Anyway. Before that, when he was fucking cool, you know, better, faster, stronger, Kanye West.
You mean the collaboration that he did with Daft Punk?
No. Takashi Murakami did the animation for a music video for Kanye West.
And that was in collaboration with Daft Punk.
Okay, cool.
The Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger.
Where I know that one was, but I'm saying, like,
it was
that
actually
era.
called Stronger.
No, yeah. I know, but I was saying it was that era of Kanye West.
Yeah, it was Graduation.
Point. Graduation was the one that Takashi Murakami worked with Kanye West on. You know, at least then Kanye West was awesome.
Yeah, and Kanye West...
Miku Hatsune has never been awesome. She has only been nails on a chalkboard, just like, I will eat your soul. The only thing about her I like is that really creepy face she makes in that vegetable juice commercial. She makes this face when she's like, you know, Yosai Jitsu, you will like this, motherfuckers. She makes this really creepy face, and I'm like, cool, that's it.
Oh, wow, we haven't even talked about the movie.
Because We spent like 5 minutes listening to that horrible song.
And you just spent 5 minutes bitching about it.
Yes, I did, because it's been welling up inside of me.
All right, so this is the first film.
First feature-length film by Takashi Murakami. He has done anime episodes that were very, very short, called Kai Kai Kiki. And he has done, I believe it was a short film, but he's done a live-action film called Dharma that was released spring 2009 that I haven't seen because I can't find it, but I know that he made it. Maybe it didn't get distributed, because I saw a preview for it, so maybe it didn't get distribution. But more likely it's just Dharma is like the most ungoogleable title.
Yeah, since that is very Buddhist.
Yeah.
And this movie had a mixture of religion. It was Buddhist, Taoist, and Shinto.
Which is not uncommon in Japanese culture to sort of mix religion in together as you please.
Yeah, so it was interesting because this essentially is Criterion's first film release.
You mean like that they didn't pick up after the fact?
Well, as far as like a theatrical release. Like this is the first time they picked up something, to my recollection.
Yeah, you would know better than I would.
Actually, I think I might be wrong. I think their first was Tiny Furniture. The Lena Dunham movie. I actually thought that was an interesting movie. Lena Dunham, I get a lot of people have some things to say about her as a person, but I do think that she's an interesting filmmaker. And maybe once she steps away from Girls, we'll see like what else she does as far as film goes, even though a lot of directors are leaning towards television these days.
Yeah. Because that's where you have the freedom and the money. Right.
I mean, you have Steven Soderbergh, who's doing a series called The Nick. You had Jane Campion, who did Top of the Lake. Mm-hmm. You had Cary Fukunaga for True Detective.
Season 1 only.
Yeah. And of course, probably the most famous is David Lynch's Twin Peaks.
Right. And plenty of film directors have done episodes of television as well.
Right. So
but back to the movie.
Back to the movie. Do you want to start it off?
Okay, where to start? Well, okay. You're not familiar with Takashi Murakami, more or less. And I've been a fan of his since 2008. I saw an exhibit of his at the Brooklyn Museum of Art and just was immediately like, oh my god, this guy is awesome. Because if there's anything that just makes me go, what the fuck am I looking at? Even if I objectively don't like it, I really, really like it. Just for getting that kind of reaction. Like, that's the reason why I like Kyary Pamyu, because believe me, I don't like her because she's a good singer, because she's not. But I like her because I watch her shit, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? And it makes me happy. So, that's why I like Takashi Murakami. Like, he messes around with a lot of, he does sculpture, he does print, he does painting, he does animation, he does glass blowing, he does plushies, he does knockoff Louis Vuittons, which is actually really cute. I don't like Louis Vuitton, but I like the little purses with the eyeballs on them, because, like, the little eyeballs are adorable. He does a lot of shit that's adorable. He does a lot of shit that's like rip-offs, but in a cool way that I'm okay with. And he does a lot of cutesy stuff and fucked up stuff. And then he has like a tiny, tiny amount that's just like really obscene and pornographic for the hell of it that I'm okay with as well, but it's not my favorite. So, you know, I came into it as a fan and I was just like, squee! Murakami's doing a full-length animated movie and it's on VOD, or not animated movie, but a full-length movie and it's on VOD! Oh my god, let's watch Jellyfish Eyes! You know, and I saw all the promotional artwork for it. I was like, it looks so cool! The designs are awesome! Because I dig it. Murakami's running around in like these little costumes he makes to promote it. That's cool, because I like him in the costumes. And he's been on Facebook. He's just been posting all of the reviews, even the negative ones, which is cool. So I was just like, jellyfish eyes, cool. Let's see it. And then then I saw it, and it was okay. Like, parts of it were really cool, and then parts of it were just very generic. And then Miku Hatsune came in and ruined it all. And then he set up a sequel. And he doesn't strike me as being that presumptuous, but I guess so. So, that was my experience in 5 minutes or longer.
Yeah. What's funny for me watching this movie is it essentially felt like a video game adaptation. It was like you took concepts of Tamagotchi, and they did actually call these things friends in the movie.
Yes, but it actually was the English word friend and not the Japanese word tomodachi, which was kind of cool. So it's kind of like, okay, cool. So you're not making up some acronym for the English translation that doesn't actually make sense. But then you have to hear these live action anime guys and silly cloaks try to speak English and whatever, but the costumes were too much. Oh my god, the adults were insufferable in this movie. The kids were all fine. I could deal with them because they were children. But, ugh.
And the costumes really reminded me of the Heartless from Kingdom Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
With the hoods and everything like that.
Yeah.
The robes and the hoods.
And the scientist who does not understand computers.
Yeah, and spends way too much on his hair. He looked like a supermodel. It was about as convincing as Tara Reid as a scientist in Alone in the Dark.
I thought you were dead, asshole.
Yeah, so this movie essentially is Pokemon the movie.
Yeah, but I don't know. I still liked it better than the 2001 Pokemon based on my recollection of my experience of seeing it in theaters as a kid. I still like this one better. I still like it better than Transformers.
Yeah.
If I'm going to watch CGI creatures run around battling each other, I'll pick Jellyfish Eyes over all of the Transformer movies.
For a second, I thought you were going to say Terminator. I was like, no, you take that back.
No, no. No.
Okay.
But Transformers?
Yeah. So, this movie touches some pretty touchy topics for Japan.
But
so I think that's partly...
Yeah, I wonder really if part of it is just he was kind of too close to a concept to fully translate it.
Yeah, it kept on teetering toward this idea of giving something a little bit more profound, but it didn't go there.
Yeah, of course, that was my interpretation of it, being a foreigner who was only... I knew about Fukushima when it happened. The day it happened. I knew all the news about it, but I was halfway across the world. You were there at the time, right?
Right, and that was a pretty traumatic time for Japan. It was a pretty traumatic time for the whole world just because a nuclear power plant leak. We don't know what's going to happen. We still don't understand nuclear waste in a way that makes us feel comfortable.
Right.
Nuclear stuff, there's a reason why there's so many superhero movies and kaiju movies and monster movies all based on this fear of the nuclear waste, nuclear power, because it does weird things. It can deform people.
There are people who are still being born with deformities because of nuclear radiation that's still in the earth from nuclear testing.
Right. And I mean, the scary thing is with the Fukushima power plant being right by the ocean, the Japanese people, consume all these fish.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, if there was radiation in the water in California. Right.
Well, and the Japanese people were lied to by their government because the one thing that one thing I know about Japanese culture is they try to disseminate information as soon as it could be a problem for the society, because they don't really have people questioning their government as much as, of course, the United States. I mean,
right, but this movie, that was one of the few things that they were actually very clear about. Very clear about.
And it was the strongest part of the movie, too.
Right, I mean, it was definitely talking about Fukushima because
his
father died from a nuclear tsunami wave. And his uncle works in an evil lab that's causing mysterious sicknesses in the town that everybody's banding against. And there's a new religious sect that's coming about preaching about how the government and the authorities are corrupt and evil and lie to the people, and the corruption from those labs is it's tarnishing the souls of the people and the earth that they live on, and they need to cleanse. It's very, very distinct. But on the other hand, this was not Godzilla, where the allegory was there, but and it was a kid's movie. I knew it was a kid's movie. There's no preconception of oh, well, this is for adults. I get that. But you took something so recent and devastating and outlined it very clearly. And put in all this kiddie anime fun action stuff, which didn't push that narrative any further. Godzilla is a giant monster who runs around Tokyo, yes, and that's badass and awesome. But his being and the story around him pushes the narrative of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Friends, which I know you were telling me about the Tomodachi.
The Operation Tomodachi.
Right, which is obviously what Friends is referring to, but it's really confusing because the Friends are they're the manifestation of the nuclear shit that happened at Fukushima, except for they're also saving it, except for one of the Friends was evil and became a giant kaiju and was destroying people, but then all the other Friends were good. Meh.
Anime logic.
Yeah, it's just kind of the whole concept of the movie. If you outline the movie of the formula of, young school child meets supernatural creature, and there are lots of supernatural creatures, and they all fight each other because it's fun, but fighting each other is bad, so it's really like Pokemon 2001, where they try to tell you, oh, it's so cool to have animals fight each other, except for don't really do it, and then all the animals get together, and then they all die, and then the school children cry, and then they all come back to life. That's the plot. That really is the plot. But how does that relate to Fukushima? And how do either one of those help the other narrative or push either narrative any further?
All right, and just for you people who don't know what Operation Tomodachi was, Operation Tomodachi is what the joint military action to support the disaster relief that happened right after the tsunami hit Saipan. I was on a destroyer called the Curtis Wilbur, and we assisted with identifying boats. Whenever a carrier goes underway, they have to have destroyers protecting it at all times. So we were assisting the USS Ronald Reagan in their support to the people on land. But we never actually got to land, but we were 3 nautical miles away from land.
Right, and Tomodachi is the Japanese word for friend.
Right.
As well.
So they used the American friend, and I don't know what friend actually stood for, but
they explained it, and it was all English words, but I don't remember any of it. Wait. I know the I was inner energy.
It was...
Wait, it was inner energy, and then the N was negative energy. That's all I remember.
It was the typical stuff that, I mean, I hate to sound super, like, against anime, because I'm not, but it was very anime.
No, I know that's not true.
No, like, it did feel like a very kids-oriented anime. It felt like, you know, the anime that you would show, like, 8-year-olds, like Pokemon.
Right, and besides
which is nothing, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, and there's some really interesting visual stuff that Takashi Murakami does, and of course he's an artist, so the visual stuff is going to come out great. It's just some of the story, it needed some polishing too.
Right, and when it comes to the animation, they included so many different kinds of animation into one film, which really kind of each thing sort of helped the other, I think. I lost my train of thought. Hold on. Oh, but not only being, you know, coming in with the expectation of, oh, I actually really like Takashi Murakami, I want to see his film. You make fun of me all the time because how much of my DVD collection are kids' movies? And how much, like, do I just sit in front of the TV and watch kids' movies and turn into a little 2-year-old, you know? I'm just like, yay! You know, I watch Kai Kai and Kiki, and I'm like, Kai Kai Kiki-chan. So if there was somebody between the two of us who was really going to buy into it, it was going to be me. And I did, to a certain extent, because, you know, every time I saw Luxor, who was, you know, a non-licensed version of My Neighbor Totoro, you know, I was just like, Luxor! Yeah! You're so cute! And you protect everybody! Which is why I liked him, you know.
Yeah, Luxor was kind of like Snuffleupagus and Totoro combined.
Yeah. Except for he was a big dog. Ah, so cute. But he protected everybody, I like that too. And his owner, Saki, was the best in the movie, really. By a lot. Like, some of the adults were, like, the mom, Masachi's mother was pretty good, but out of the, like, the main character, Masashi, that's his name. Masashi's mother was pretty good, but out of the main actors, Saki was the best.
I do believe that his name is Musashi after the famous samurai Masashi Miyamoto.
Oh, interesting.
From, I want to say it's the Book of Five Rings. I read part of it like a while back, but I can't remember much of it. I need to go back to it. But I
that
do
would
think
explain all the martial arts stuff that he's doing in the movie, though.
Yeah.
Also, I liked a lot of the friends. I liked a lot of the friends' designs. I liked Luxor. I liked Yuppie a lot. Yuppie was awesome. It was like a rattlesnake and a toad put together. That was pretty rad. There was one little white thing with a bunch of eyes. I don't know what that was, but it was cool. But I had two problems. One, you didn't have Kai Kai and Kiki as somebody's friends. Boo. You know, I wanted to see Kai Kai and Kiki again, damn it. And two, Kuragebo was really lame. He was super, super moe and really obnoxious. Just like, Chikama!
Yeah, and I mentioned to you that the top of his head looks like the I forget what the biological word is for it is, but it's the connector for the tube on the testicle. like that little flower looking thing that connects the testicle to the tube and then, you know, inside the groin. I'm sure somebody who knows genital anatomy is probably really frustrated right now, but you know what I'm talking about.
Well, considering some of Takashi Murakami's more perverted work, that doesn't really surprise me at all. Like, if that was intentional, it wouldn't surprise me, but also if it wasn't intentional, that wouldn't surprise me either.
I was relieved that there wasn't a lot of panty shots in this movie. Yeah,
especially considering the fact that that character is a statue that he's made, and that statue has a built-in panty shot. If you look at her anywhere close to the back at all, you can see her panties from a mile away. It's built into her figure. So I was surprised that it wasn't like every single take had a panty shot.
Yeah, in fact, there were only like 3, and they were really quick.
Yeah.
So
that was cool. Her owner was actually a pretty cool kid, too, and he kind of reminded me of someone, but I can't put my finger on it. But a few of the kids were pretty cool. Masashi wasn't like the worst kid or anything, but Saki was so much better.
Yeah, plus he had some of the funniest facial expressions.
Oh my gosh, some of his really intense faces were hilarious. And there's this scene in it where he's like, why? I was like, okay, Shinji Ikari, calm down.
Yeah, there was a lot of overacting in this movie.
Well, that's... In anime, that's usually when voice actors shine the most. Like, Shinji Ikari, as much as I don't like him as a character, I'm always in awe of that voice actor, because when he screams like that, it's like my blood runs cold. I'm like, oh my god, dude! Calm down, it's gonna be okay! But in a good way. A lot of voice actors who can pull off that intensity are really good. It's just you have this really little kid with these very intense faces. When he does not have an intense face. He has very soft, cute features. He's an adorable kid. He's really cute. But he's not like, grrr.
Yeah. So...
This movie did... I will say this movie did make me revert back into my weeaboo mode.
Yeah, it's... If you're into kind of the... I'm going to be really careful with my words. If you're into perhaps a younger style anime, you know, like the school era anime with...
You're talking about like moe slice of life kind of stuff.
Yeah, moe slice of life, that kind of thing. If that's what you're into, like, you will love this movie.
And Pokemon. Like,
yeah.
Like, it really is a mashup between, like... It kind of is like a middle school Rumble meets Pokemon.
Yeah, I personally think that people are a little too nostalgic for Pokemon, because if you go back and watch the episodes as an adult, unless you have super nostalgia, which I've met people that have like nostalgia times 1,000, like they can watch something that they liked as a kid and still view it that way. But most people, when they watch that, they go, hey, it's not as good as I remember it.
Right, especially because of crappy dubbing. But
yeah.
Honestly, my takeaway is if I had bought this, I wouldn't have felt cheated, and I probably would watch it again. Because I liked it okay. There were, you know, I liked a lot of the designs, and some of the character stuff was fun, and the ultimate kaiju thing at the end was super awesome. He was just like this really freaky giant mole looking thing with a bunch of teeth that's running around chomping on people until he turns into a black hole and sucks in everything. Awesome. You know, it was cool, but it was not all that in a bag of chips like I was expecting from Murakami.
Andy has a flashing weak point.
Well, that's what really makes it a video game. It's duh! In a video game, if your opponent has something round that flashes, that is the weak point. Go for it! It's a beacon. It's calling for you to kill it. That's like, ugh.
Yeah.
I was kind of just like, dude, you actually needed a young child to hack into a computer to tell you that?
Also, if you have epilepsy, or you know somebody who has epilepsy, do not see the movie, or do not force somebody to see this movie.
Don't see the movie. We don't know that. Like, there was some stuff in it, but I'm sure that there would have been a warning if that was the case. I mean, if there were music videos on Vivo that have to have epilepsy warnings on them, I'm sure that if this movie was not safe for certain viewers, they would have said it somewhere.
The opening of Enter the Void has no warning about epilepsy, and I would be shocked if somebody doesn't have a seizure watching the opening of Enter the Void.
Okay, well, let's say this. Maybe if you are epileptic, maybe try to do a little bit of research before you find it, before you watch the movie, I guess.
Right. Because we don't want that to happen to you. Right. We don't want to encourage you to induce a seizure.
A Caesar? A Caesar? King
A
Caesar went down
Caesar.
because... Oh, that explains why King Caesar went down. He was epileptic. That's why laser beams caused him to just like... I love that meme with the toys of King Caesar and Mechagodzilla. And Mechagodzilla's like, hey, King Caesar, guess what? And Caesar's like, what? Laser beams!
So I really wish that we could talk more about this movie, but
there wasn't much to the movie.
Right.
And it wasn't a long movie, so that's good.
Yeah,
but...
there wasn't a lot of meat to the movie, and I'm sure we're probably missing something other than what we already addressed. But, I mean, the religious aspect was interesting, but I wasn't really sure what they were trying to address, whether they were trying to address anything.
Well, it's the sort of mindset of when you're truly desperate, you kind of really reach out in ways that aren't entirely logical. There are phenomenon of people in desperation turning towar's the occult or toward religion or things like that don't
Doomsday
really make
cults
sense.
And stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Oh, what was the really bizarre one? Heaven's Gate, I think it was. The Suicide Pact.
Yeah.
And was that the one, Hale-Bopp?
Wasn't
that was
one
for
that was...
Hale-Bopp, the comet?
Yeah, the comet, because they thought aliens were hiding behind the comet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I shouldn't laugh at that, but that is kind of ridiculous.
If Key and Peele can make a sketch of it.
Okay, yeah. It's not too soon. It happened a while back.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, you didn't laugh when you said it.
Right, but like when you think about it, I mean, you know, Jim Jones, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's ridiculous in the most horrific way, and the only way to even cope with that kind of horrible thing is to laugh at it. Mm. Which does kind of seem to be what this movie did, to take a really horrible event and kind of make light of it, which is kind of what Godzilla turned into later on.
Right, and I'll
and
say
what Astro Boy was, essentially.
Right, and I will say this. Unlike Godzilla 2014, it wasn't like it was bastardizing a concept, like something that happened, or like really being offensive about it. It didn't feel like that at all to me as an outsider who was not there at the moment and doesn't know that much about it. I didn't personally see it as upsetting or offensive or anything like that. I just didn't... I'm so into the mythology of Godzilla being what it is, and that's part of the reason why I also really like Godzilla vs. Ghidorah. Ghidorah is a very similar thing. I gravitate towards that idea so much that I went in with a preconceived notion that possibly was not fair to the movie.
Right, and that's always important to address.
Right.
When you're giving a bias towards a movie. I went into the movie with expectations of Criterion picked it up, so therefore it must have artistic merit that exceeds a certain level. But this really kind of felt run-of-the-mill. Other than some interesting visual stuff, which obviously comes from the artist.
Right, and there was a lot of emotional stuff that my cheese factor was totally buying into.
But if I were going to pick a movie for Criterion to pick up, it wouldn't be this.
Part of the reason why I think they picked it up is because it's a first-time feature by a very prominent visual artist who has a lot of clout.
Right, and Criterion really likes picking up their the first films of the director.
Right. So there was potential there. I get it. And also, even though this is his first film, in that it's his first feature film, he has done forays into film as a medium before. This was not entirely alien to him, and there was quite a bit of competency of, it wasn't worse than competence, which is good. That's not an insult to say that it was never below competent, because there are so many filmmakers, even like filmmakers who have turned out film after film that can't even reach that level of just being competent. So, at worst, it was never below that.
Right, and there have been filmmakers before that have been artists before filmmakers. David Lynch is
Mm-hmm.
one of the most famous. You also have Steve McQueen, who was a painter, and he also did some short films.
Right.
So it is something that is known for. Probably the most famous is Salvador Dali.
Right.
And
But he's not as well known for his forays into filmmaking. It's more of his small forays in filmmaking are famous because really big Salvador Dali fans are like, oh my god, what?
Well, I personally think that Louis Buñuel gets the short end of the stick with their collaboration stuff. I think Salvador Dali gets way too much credit for Un Chien Andalou and L'Age d'Or.
Right. I mean, when I was taught about that stuff, I was taught, like, the actual director and that, Salvador Dali contributed to it, but yeah, which one do I remember? I remember, Salvador Dali worked on that. Cool.
Right. And, I mean, of course, there are allusions to his other work. Just like in Takashi Murakami's Jellyfish Eyes, there is allusions to a lot of his works.
Right, a lot of his works and his own, licensed characters. Mostly because why not? He's doing his own thing. He owns it all. Why not? But I was just kind of like, as a fangirl, totally, I was just like, more? Can we have D.O.B.-kun? Maybe that's what that little white thing was, because I liked him because he reminded me so much of D.O.B.-kun. Maybe he was a really, really tiny D.O.B.-kun, but I don't think he was. I don't think he was D.O.B., but he kind of reminded me of him. But there's no Kai Kiki. A lot of his other characters are not involved. So it's just kind of like,
You might get those in Jellyfish Eyes too, which if you stay past the credits, you see a trailer
through Miku Hatsune's horrible singing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a ton of slow-mo parts in this movie that
for dramatic effect, which at least wasn't just like, why? Because at least it was for dramatic effect, but it was so much of it.
It did kind of... That was another thing that kind of reminded me of video games, because it's like, okay, you do this battle, and then there's this slow-mo cutscene where it's all sweet, and he's, like, in love with this girl, and...
Right.
Stab me now.
One thing I didn't understand, because they totally didn't explain it, because it doesn't... It's kind of too small of a thing to explain, I get, but the lab was having this big festival, and the festival looked awesome. But if everybody in the town knows that the lab is making them all sick, and they're all against the lab, because you don't meet anybody except for the uncle who's, like, sympathetic to whatever the fuck it is that this lab is doing. Everybody is pissed at this lab. Everybody hates it. But there's a festival going on with a bunch of people in it. What?
They probably paid people, because that does happen in Japan.
Yeah. Also, who is the idol group that was performing there? Because they looked really cute. They looked like Momo Erozi, but they weren't. I know, but they looked kind of like that sort of thing. It was cute.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting that for the longest time I thought it was in the character's head, the Jellyfish Eyes, and I thought
I was totally cool with that.
The other friends and Pokemon, like, I thought that's where the film was going, but apparently they were so good at hiding it from their parents and everything and their teacher who...
That scene was funny. That scene was awesome. I actually really liked that scene.
Oh, where the frog guy goes invisible?
Yuppie, yeah. I love that scene where a bunch of kids are trying to fight with their friends in the classroom while the school teacher is trying to teach this really complicated problem about if two trains are heading towards each other and one's at this velocity and one's at... I fucking hate those word problems. Anyways, the teacher's just doing this, and every time she turns around, they make their friends invisible.
Like, literally, it's every second she turns around, it's like, what? And then she turns around again.
That was super funny.
Yeah.
But...
Best scene in the movie.
I disagree with that, but one of them, yes.
Yeah.
Because it was super funny. And yeah, I liked this idea... I don't know, I was just kind of like, oh, it's all in his head. And as much as I hate that idea in movies, I was like, that's cool, he has this invisible friend. I'm okay with that. And then it's like, oh my god, everybody else has invisible friends, and the invisible friends can see the other invisible friends, And they just, like, they can all see each other and know because they're all kids. I was like, oh, that's awesome! That's super cool. And then, no, these Black Cloak 4. That's what they were called, the Black Cloaked 4.
And it was totally ripped off of fucking Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, the Black Cloaked 4 gave them these devices that gave them their own little Pokemon, but instead of going into Pokeballs, they go into, like, this little thing, and it's just called the device. Which is super uninventive.
And, like, half of this movie felt like they were actually trying to sell toys. Which I wouldn't be surprised.
Weird. Like, they might make toys based on the movie, but that's part of the reason why I was like, why aren't you using more of your own characters? Because you already have all this shit. If you're gonna, like, sell your shit, put it all in there.
But maybe he's trying to create new toys that, like, kids can buy and stuff like that.
I don't know. I liked so many of the designs. I would totally go out and buy them. I would buy a Yuppie. Yuppie was cool. I don't think I would buy Kuragebo, though, because Kuragebo sucked.
Well, also when he was flying, he never had the same...
Yeah, every time his flying mechanism was different. Like, completely different.
Yeah, like, sometimes it would be like a jellyfish umbrella, and then sometimes it would be a rocket.
Here's the cool thing about the Friends is that the Friends were all based on their owners to a certain extent. So you can't have this Deus Ex Machina thing, and that's fine, because it actually makes sense in the story. But I follow shit pretty well. Ren and Stimpy episodes make complete sense to me. I did not understand this Black Cloak 4 and their weird evil plans that had to do with negative energy and collecting data, and we've never seen a waveform like this, and it's like, well, what have you seen before?
Well, and I think part of that mystery is adding to this franchise, apparently, which is what it seems to be doing.
Whatever, I'll watch the next one. I'm a fan, so I'll do it. I don't care. And also, a lot of the things that they showed in the next time on Jellyfish Eyes looked pretty cool. There was this one thing where, like, these two chicks are dressed up, like, in these cyberpunk outfits, and they're in this virtual reality rocket ship thing. I was like, yeah, if you're gonna make a live action anime... I don't know if it's
virtual reality. I think it might actually be, like, a mech that they created.
Yeah, it could have been a mech, but... I'm just like, if you're gonna make live action anime, which this is not the first time, or the second, or the 10th, this is not new, but, you know, it's just, if you're gonna make a movie that's totally live action anime, go all the way out and just really have fun with it.
Yeah.
Which kind of looks like that's what they're doing next time.
Do the full Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
I mean, even though Scott Pilgrim isn't a live action anime, it kind of is.
Well, it's a live action graphic novel anime.
Yeah, that was... Well, it's a graphic novel that's heavily influenced by anime. So,
right. Well, there were certain parts that were anime and certain parts that were graphic novel, because it...
And certain parts...
That's the thing about creating art, that you could just sort of pick all these different things and put them together, and whoosh, there you go, and it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so let us know what you think. Contact us at allwalksofilm@gmail.com, or...
Make comments below talking about how my fangirl is showing. Because it totally is. This movie did make me go back to weeaboo mode. I'm like back in high school.
Yeah. And if the Cloak 4 made more sense to you than us, please explain what you got out of them.
Yes, please. Because I'd like to understand.
Yeah, because right now it was getting very heartless for me. And all the stuff with Ansem and all the stuff in Kingdom Hearts that doesn't make sense kind of fed into this movie, and it kind of reminded me of Sin from Final Fantasy with the tsunami and everything like that, so yeah. But I'm sure you liked it. Or...
Sin was a kaiju too, wasn't it, though?
Yeah, Sin was a kaiju in Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
So, I thought the movie was competent. I didn't really like the movie, but I could appreciate parts of the movie.
Yeah, and the kaiju that they had at the end was super awesome.
Right. And I do like the fact that special effects in Japan are becoming more competent, because for the longest time, Japan special effects literally looked like something that was about 20 years old.
There's a reason why the Millennium series, excluding Final Wars, really did still rely very heavily on practical effects and miniatures, because they tried doing that shit with Rebirth of Mothra and they saw how it turned out and they knew better.
Well, one of the things I like about the Japanese is they're gonna try it.
Yeah, which is
like,
cool.
I like the fact that it might not always look that great, but they have the audacity to actually go through with it. It might not look great, but we're gonna try to do something crazy.
Right. There's definitely a sense of, let's experiment with this.
And this movie did have an experimental edge. I kind of wish it had more of an experimental edge. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish it was less narrative driven.
Yeah, and the funny thing was, you went into it and the first thing you said as soon as it started was, I'm going to be shocked if this is a linear story. I was like, oh, it's Takashi Murakami. It's not going to be linear. Don't worry about it.
And it was very linear.
Yeah. Like, surprisingly linear, now that I think about it.
I was expecting something more abstract.
Yeah. I mean...
something more like what a painter would do.
Right. The Good Morning music video had a narrative to it, but it wasn't quite that same sort of very explicit storytelling. There was something more organic. Was it
Good Morning or Graduation?
I think the album was called Good Morning, and the song was called Graduation.
Okay.
Or something like that. I don't know. I always call it Good Morning because I think of Good Morning, woo. You know, that's just what I think of.
And the whole song is about, like, Kanye West getting an honorary degree or something like that.
Yeah. But, you know, the music video... it had a narrative. This kid overslept. He can't make it to school. He's missing his graduation, but he kicks ass anyway. But it was more organic and kind of just like throwing shit at you. And then there was some chick who looked just like Lola from Space Jam. She was like this bunny cheerleader, but with really, really big boobs.
There's none of that in this movie. Except for that one character who reminded me that I really was watching the anime.
Which
the
one?
Friend.
Which friend? There were a lot of friends.
The only one that looked human.
Oh, Luxor?
No, the girl.
Oh, you mean Saki?
Yeah. No, the animated girl.
Oh, the maid chick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember what she was called, which sucks. I have it written down in a notebook somewhere what he called that character, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, that was the one character there where I was like, yeah, I really am watching just a live action anime.
I mean, it doesn't help that she sounded exactly like Haruhi Suzumiya.
But you like that.
That anime? Fuck yeah, I like that anime. Fuck yeah. But in that anime, Haruhi Suzumiya is an anime character in the real world.
That's interesting.
That's not the plot of the story at all, but that's the feeling you sort of get when you're watching the series, is because everybody else is normal and she's like this weird freak of nature who's like pushing people into doing shit and blackmailing people with panty shots and blah blah blah. Anyway. Yeah.
What? Okay.
No, there's a scene where they go into the computer lab. All these evil nerds have stolen the computers, and so she pushes this really shy chick that she dressed up. She forced this really shy chick to dress up in a Playboy bunny costume. So she's like, okay, you evil nerds won't get out of our computer lab. Here. And she, like, throws the Playboy bunny girl, Mikado Asahina, onto the nerds, so the nerds are all groping her. And, you know, Haruhi starts taking photos, and she's like, if you guys don't want to be labeled as perverts, give us back our computers. And everybody else is just like, what? Like, that's the feeling in the show. Everybody else is normal except for her.
So let us know what you think. Contact us at allwalksfilm@gmail.com or put in the comments below. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.